Welcome to the Good Reading Podcast, proudly sponsored by Book People Gift Cards. A Book People gift card is the perfect gift for readers of all ages. Simply order your gift card online at bookpeoplegiftcards.org.au. Redeem at any one of over 500 bookshops across Australia. Visit bookpeoplegiftcards.org.au.
Eila stopped, but it wasn't because Kim was shouting at her. She suddenly knelt down in the water to look at something below the surface. Her brother grabbed her shoulder to pull her up, but she resisted. He looked down as well and recoiled. "What is that?" he asked. "Is that a head?" "Looks like it," whispered Benny, coming up close. She had a tight grip on Madia, who was still trying to move up to Eila. "A cut-off head. Someone with long hair. A murderer must have thrown it in." "It isn't a cut-off head," snapped Eila. As so often, she used her "I told you so" voice, which Kim was always trying to get her to drop. Eila was super smart and nearly always right about facts, but telling people they were wrong often got her into trouble, particularly with older children. Kim and Benny sometimes had to step in to protect her from bullies who didn't like being corrected by a know-it-all girl. Kim peered into the murky water. "Yeah, the hair is lakeweed. It's an old cannonball or something like that. Maybe just a stone." "She isn't a stone," corrected Eila. She shrugged Kim's hand off and leaned into the water to reach for the muddy ball, weed and all. "Don't!" shouted Kim, but he was too late. Eila got both hands on whatever it was and lifted it out of the water, drawing it close to her chest. It was perfectly round, roughly the size of the globe in the school library, and pinpoints of light began to shine through where the mud was rubbing off. Kim reached out to wrestle the globe away, and Benny let go of Madia to help him. But as soon as they touched the muddy ball, they froze. Brilliant light shone through their fingers, showing their bones like shadows beneath the skin. They could not let go, nor move any other muscle.
Garth Nix's award-winning novels have sold more than 7 million copies around the world and been translated into 42 languages. His books include the Old Kingdom fantasy series, the science fiction novels Shade's Children and A Confusion of Princes, the fantasy novels The Left-Handed Booksellers of London and its sequel, The Sinister Booksellers of Bath. His novels for children include The Rag Witch, The Seventh Tower Sequence, The Keys to the Kingdom series, and Frog Kisser. Today I'm talking to Garth Nix about his latest book, We Do Not Welcome Our 10-Year-Old Overlord. Garth Nix, welcome to the Good Reading Podcast.
It's good to be here, thank you.
We Do Not Welcome Our 10-Year-Old Overlord has to be one of the best and most intriguing book titles I've come across. I dare anyone who came across this title not to be at least curious, but what does it tell us about the story?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, the title actually came to me first, which doesn't always happen. I do place a lot of importance on titles, but usually they sort of crop up when I've begun to work on a book after a little while. In the case of this book, that is the very first thing that came to mind. We do not welcome our 10-year-old overlord. And everything came from that. And I guess it connects to a bunch of stuff. There is an internet meme, "We do not welcome our insect overlords." I've forgotten what it comes from. I did look it up at one point, but I guess it carries with it the idea of alien overlords or other than human overlords, and then combining it with 10-year-old, I guess immediately brings to mind the sort of idea of bossy children and so on. So I think there's a lot of things that it suggests that, and of course, "we do not welcome" is quite a strong statement in itself. Who is not welcoming the overlord? I mean, I guess no one wants an overlord, and in this case, in the book, of course, it's the 12-year-olds who don't welcome the 10-year-old overlord.
No 12-year-old would. At the core of We Do Not Welcome Our 10-Year-Old Overlord is the game of Dungeons & Dragons. And for those who might not be familiar, perhaps they've been living under a rock, D&D, it's an open-ended role-playing board game from the 70s, 1974, I think. And that's pretty old school. But even just from reading your prologue, let alone the story as a whole, I think it might be fair to say that D&D was a teenage obsession for Garth Nix, maybe even a lifestyle.
Totally, absolutely an obsession. And the book is set in 1975 in a slightly alternate Canberra, and it draws completely on my own childhood. And a big part of the story is the Dungeons and Dragons game that the 12-year-olds are playing. And like me, the main character, Kim, discovers the game in a little game shop, and no one knows about it. No one can tell him how you play. They don't know anyone else who plays. The owner of the game shop doesn't know how you play. And this reflects how it was, back then. I mean, these days, I think probably pretty much everyone in the world has played a role-playing game at some point or a computer version of it. But back then, it was just unknown. But I distinctly remember finding the game and reading the little booklets actually in the store, which is something Kim also does in the book, and being entranced with the idea that you could somehow be part of a story, that you could create a story with your friends and be part of it together, not just read a story. I mean, I already love fantasy fiction. I actually love all kinds of fiction and non-fiction too, even then. But I had a particular love for fantasy and finding Dungeons and Dragons and this idea of a story you created with your friends and were part of was incredibly appealing to me. And then it became an important part of my life. And I think it was very important in my training as a writer because I became the games master, or as it was called originally in the original rules, just the referee. Later on, it became known as the games master or the dungeon master, the GM or DM. And you're preparing the groundwork for an interactive story with your friends, and then you're helping guide the story with them. Of course, everything you prepare, the players change and take different directions, and in a way, this is kind of like a story where the characters, assume their own identities and make different choices to what you originally think is going to happen as the author. So I think it was a tremendous apprenticeship for my later career. But of course, I didn't realize it at the time. It was just something we liked to do. It was a fun game, and we played almost every Sunday afternoon all the way through high school.
The story includes references to Greyhawk, but more importantly, Lord of the Rings, Le Guin's A Wizard of Earthsea, and even Doctor Who, which brings me to the question of setting. I felt like I was in a bit of a time warp, or perhaps a 1975 Canberra bubble.
Yeah, it's totally set in a 1975 Canberra, a slightly alternate version of the city. So I have some leeway with geography and time and a few other things. That was very much intentional. I wanted the story to reflect when I was 12, and also some friends of mine and I did discover something in the lake. I mean, the city's never named in the book, and neither is the lake, but the lake is Lake Burley Griffin. And when I was actually a little bit older than the kids in this book, some friends of mine and I did find something in the twilight in the shallow water of the lake, which we thought was a severed head. And we debated what to do about it. It was long before mobile phones. Should we find a phone box and call the police? Should we go home and tell our parents? Or should we wade in and look at it more closely? Of course, we chose the wade in and look at it more closely option. And it turned out to be a stone with lakeweed for hair. That's one of the numerous things from my own childhood that I gave to the kids in this book. Though, of course, what they find is this mysterious globe, neither a severed head nor simply a stone with lakeweed for hair.
Part of the Dungeons and Dragons play is to create your own characters and even to record special abilities that they might have. Your character names are especially imaginative and sometimes quite difficult to pronounce. We have Kim, whose real name is Chimera Xanthoparmelia basalt, Benny, Benjamina Romella Chance, it's one of the easier ones, and their respective sisters, Ilethia Indigofera basalt, or Eila, and Madia Sophotella Chance. All very interesting names, but how are they all connected in this story?
Well, I mean, they meet originally and they bond over their unusual names in kindergarten. So they've known each other all their lives, essentially. But yes, their unusual names brought them together. And they're two different sets of unusual names. Kim and Eila's parents, who are quite unusual, uh, I guess sort of hippie scientists would be a fair thing to say. Their names reflect their scientific interests and their favorite plant, Genesis. And then Benny and Madir reflects their parents' interests. But yes, that certainly is what brought them together, is their unusual names. And they have, I guess, those classic sibling relationships to a degree where the 12-year-olds, being 2 years older, they do feel responsible for their younger siblings, but are also very annoyed by them. And Kim is particularly annoyed because Eila is incredibly clever, but he doesn't think she's got any common sense. Benny, with her sister, feels particularly responsible because her parents are not responsible. So there's those complicated sibling relationships that just make the story more interesting. As per usual, I didn't know much about the characters when I started writing the book. I didn't plan all that out in advance. I typically discover more about my characters as the story builds, and some of it is related to what I need for the story, and some of it just seems to be a natural sort of outgrowth to what I've written about them. I think, oh, well, I've already established this aspect of their character. Where does that go? What else can happen from there? So I'm not one of those authors who works out the characters very much in advance. And so I guess unlike Dungeons and Dragons, where you do work out all the characteristics of your character, you work out their ability scores and their special skills and so on. I don't do that. I work it out as I go and what I need for the story.
We Do Not Welcome Our 10-Year-Old Overlord introduces some real-world problems, and this book is not a very long book. Does introducing those real-world problems help you to flesh out the characters more effectively in such a short space?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think whenever you're writing something fantastic, I mean, I'm a fantasy and science fiction writer. I've been doing it a very long time. I've written a lot of books. For it to work properly, the fantastical elements need to be built on top of reality. So you actually need a solid foundation of real things before you add in the fantastical elements, which all have to work together with the real things that you've established. And all of that, put together helps the more fantastical stuff seem real as well. So you're not thrown out of the story or just it feels false. And so writing a story about a group of kids in Canberra in 1975, I did need to address their ordinary lives. And of course, for 10 and 12-year-olds, their parents are super important. Their family life is super important. Again, I think, looking for real stories to underpin the fantastical elements, that means that there has to be problems. I don't think anyone has a completely trouble-free family life. And if you did, that would be a different kind of story. That would be suspicious in itself. What else is going on? Maybe if I was writing a different kind of story, I would have strangely perfect families, but that would be a different story. So yes, it definitely helps create the foundation of reality that I think you need to underpin the fantastical stuff.
Well, one of the problems they have to face is they don't own a colour TV.
Well, again, that's very much drawn from my own childhood as well. And of course, how late colour TV was coming to Australia, much later than America in particular. But yes, my that does draw from my own childhood, and we didn't have a television at all. In fact, for many years, and none of the parents in the story are based on real parents of my friends I played D&D with or anybody else. They're made up, but I have taken little bits and pieces of behaviour from real people. Very small details, things like Kim being paid 2 cents to chip mortar from old bricks is something, per brick, is something drawn from my own childhood. My brothers and I think we got paid half a cent a brick actually, so it was an even worse pay rate. So small details like that, because again, small details help build up the reality of a story.
My elder brothers had exactly the same experience. They were paid threepence to clean the mortar off bricks.
That sounds like a pretty good deal, actually. That's a better pay rate again, I think, given the relative purchasing power.
I suppose. And we didn't have a television until I finished high school.
That's much later than me. I mean, my father cracked and just went and bought one day, which I don't think my mother particularly appreciated.
Interesting comparison there. We'll move on. Let's get back to the villain. It's, if I can call it a villain, this mysterious globe called Asta. It arrives on the pretext of discovering more about how this planet works. What exactly is Asta? Where does it come from and how does it work?
Well, there's too many spoilers all round to answer that question. Is Asta a villain? Eila doesn't think so, and it's possibly Asta is not. Possibly the globe isn't a villain, but anyone or anything with tremendous power over others, I think, always has the capacity to be a villain, even if they don't intend to. Certainly, Asta and Eila combined form an antagonist, I guess, to the others who are deeply suspicious of what is going on. Why is Asta there? Why is Asta giving Eila powers over the weather and insects and animals and over people as well? But are Asta's intentions good? Are Eila's intentions good? You have to read the book to find out. And if not, what can the others do about it?
Garth Nix, it's been great to talk to you, and thank you for introducing us to our 10-year-old Overlord, and thank you for joining me on the Good Reading Podcast.
Thank you very much. It's been great to talk.
I've been talking to Garth Nix about his latest book, We Do Not Welcome Our 10-Year-Old Overlord. It's published by Allen & Unwin, and you can find it at goodreadingmagazine.com.au. My name's Greg Dobbs, and thanks for listening. This Good Reading Podcast was brought to you by Book People Gift Cards. Share the joy of reading with a Book People gift card. To find out more, visit bookpeoplegiftcards.org.au.